Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Duffington Talks, the ongoing podcast where I talk about recent events, recent news, and things that I want to talk about, and give my opinion, my approach to things which is quite against the current sort of political norm, my approach to situations. Obviously, I um, agree and disagree with groups, but have ways of seeing things that is um, seemingly unique, even to people that say that I'm quite a rationalist, and people say they're rationalists and they're not, because that's a story for another day. Going off on a complete tangent already. Yeah. So today's episode, we're going to talk about. I'm going to briefly mention Russia's evilness, and then we're going to talk about Suella Braverman's plea to train fruit pickers and lorry drivers to cut migration, and then we're going to talk about the Pope refusing to bless a dog, and that's going to spin off onto a conversation about religion that I want to have, because I think it's an interesting topic, especially surrounding sort of it's International Mother's Day. It's not Mother's Day in the UK, so I guess it's what's called International Mother's Day. I think, the typical Mother's Day for most countries. Yeah, we're going to start with Russia's evilness, and amid talks of Zelensky's in the UK. I think as I record this, getting more arms and training um, for the war, and well, that's because rather bizarrely, and I don't know if this has been confirmed since. What I read this morning, it's been confirmed. But so on Saturday it was Eurovision, and Ukraine, because they won, they got automatically put through to the final. And I think 2 minutes before their performers were set to go on, um, the city where the singers hail from was bombed it's bombed and missiled by the Russians. For no other reason, it's also, I think the city's actually in the western side, so there was no tactical reason to to missile strike the city, other than the fact that they were being they were showing their colours, I guess. And from a military perspective, obviously people tactically strike certain areas for certain reasons. Yeah, that's not one of them. That was a clear act of evilness from whoever commanded that strike. Um, and I think it highlights. I've seen multiple complaints also just Zelensky's in the UK at the moment, and multiple people complaining. I think we're saying that we're going to train their pilots or something, which we're training some people, and people complaining that we shouldn't be doing this. Some backlash on social media this morning about the fact that we're training foreign nationals to fight against someone, um, and I feel like maybe this is a odd comparison, because we're not actually at war with Russia. But during World War II, we trained Polish pilots. We trained a lot of Polish intelligence forces. Um, so it's not unreasonable. Obviously, we were at war with Hitler, and we're not technically at war with Russia, but we're certainly at war by proxy. So I think that, again, you have to see it as that we're in a state of war by proxy. So these actions are obviously explainable by that fact, and the weird, like, it's not our problem. So a lot of the American right have started saying, oh, why are we funding Ukraine? It's not our war. This weird isolationism. Now I don't believe in war, and not not that I don't believe in wars. I wish that there were no wars. I'm sure many people do. A minority of psychopaths might not wish that there were no wars, but yeah, I certainly wish that there were no wars. But there are certainly some wars that are more necessary than others. If you're being invaded and you're fighting back, that's a necessary um, thing to do, and so us training the Ukrainians is completely necessary. Um, in the same way that we trained people to fight against ISIS. Well, I know the Americans certainly trained people to fight against ISIS, so I don't see what the problem is with training Ukrainians to fight against the Russians. But some people have a problem with that for some reason. No clue why. People pick and choose what they want to fight over social media. That brings us on to the second point of today's podcast. We have, well, I mean, this is. I don't want to spend too much time, but certainly wanted to bring it up. Suella Braverman said there is no good reason the UK cannot train its own lorry drivers and fruit pickers to bring down immigration. Um, in a conference in London, the Home Secretary, she said she was not racist for wanting to control borders, but her aspiration is to bring net migration. So net migration is how many people you lose to how many people you gain, down to below 100,000. So we now gain 100,000 people. We gain 700,000 people more than we lose in terms of migration this year. That's the expected record. And again, migration, the main topic of conversation from the Conservatives, unsurprising considering it's been their rhetoric for a while now. Bigger problems to worry about, bigger fish to fry from the majority of the people in the country, with inflation going up again to what is it, a 15-year high now, I think inflation's at. Cost of food in all the shops, again, anecdotally I can say the cost of food is going up, but certainly seems like the cost of food is going up everywhere. Major problems. I think we're quite comfortably in a recession now, and again the rhetoric of migration dominates the news feed, which is why I never want to dwell on it, but I guess that it's more my area of expertise than anything else. This comes off the back of the horticulture industry suffering huge labour shortages since that the UK has left the EU, made worse by the pandemic. Campaign to reduce more UK-based workers for seasonal farm roles was scrapped in 2021 after a small number of people signed up to it. So, what seems to be the problem here from the Home Secretary? Well, for a start, tying all the migration to these jobs, I think is a bit. Some of these people, the fact is that some of these people come over with degrees in extremely advanced subjects and end up working. Not necessarily fruit pickers, but some of these people come over, they have degrees and they're working as taxi drivers. I think many people, if you talk to some taxi drivers, I think many people can attest to having anecdotal conversations with taxi drivers. Obviously then you're trusting people's words, so we'll say what that is, but many people will say, yeah, they come over with a degree in somewhere from maybe an Eastern European country, or maybe their native country, and they come over and they're working as a taxi driver, and that's because the reason why, I'm not an expert on human geography, but the pull factor of coming over to the UK to work a job that is what would technically be described as below your station, in terms of your academic ability and capacity, is because the life here is better than it is earning more money, and this is why the phrase economic migration has been scorned in recent years, because economically, these people are earning less money. They're not making as much money as elsewhere, but they still want to move here, and they still want to move here because we offer much more safety, much more protection. The country is drastically safer than some of the places they're leaving, and so it's not just economic, it's societal. There are push and pull factors across a whole bunch of different ranges, and that's why migrants will want to come here and do typically lower skilled jobs than they are qualified for. And then this goes to our education system, whereas also then they aim to give a better life to their children, which very often happens, and so then they integrate with the second and third generation migrants who fight harder to have better jobs and so then achieve more, uh, which is just a natural positive of migration, which doesn't seem to be understood by many of the Conservatives because I don't actually think they've. I mean, it's GCSE geography almost with a with the understanding of migration that none of them seem to have. They just have statistics that they want to hit for no reason, and then now we get on to the training people to do these jobs. Well, being a lorry driver, being a fruit picker, these are horrible jobs, and in the sense that they are long hours, um, and they're low pay, and they're relatively low skilled. And the thing of that is that when you go through the school system in the UK, and I'm specifically talking about the UK because I know the school system, so that's this will obviously happen in other countries, not everywhere though. The school system in the UK promotes building people up, and so people will be built up to do a job. I mean, even if the job is, um, we have skilled worker jobs. Um, so, for example, working in construction, and the sort of plumbing, bricklaying. Those are skilled worker jobs, and where you're going to be earning more money and much more in a much more satisfactory job role than these people, lorry drivers that sometimes driving um, very long hours, um, and also away from their home. So these people, they're literally the lowest of the low, unskilled jobs. People that go to school in England, which is the majority of people, will get their qualifications and then think, well, I'm qualified to do something again beyond this, even if it's a skilled worker role. Thinking, I learnt them as D1 is unemployed, C2 is the level of this, and I don't know if that's unreal because I've previously tried to look up the classifications of jobs, and I don't actually think that exist in the way that I learnt it. But anyway, this would be C2, which would be unskilled worker, and people of the working class in the UK, the majority of them are C1, which is skilled worker, because they're tradespeople, and tradespeople obviously have to qualify. I mean, the level of qualification differs from plumber to then if you're a gas engineer, because the gas engineers have to be gas safe trained, whereas I don't think plumbers technically do. That you've got all the electricians, brick makers, construction people, that they have to have very skilled levels of intelligence in their specific field, and it's not a job that everyone can do. I can't wake up tomorrow and go, you know what, I want to build a house, because it's not easy, and people from certain upper class mentalities, people with certain upper class mentalities, they think that these jobs are easy to do, and this is why they think it's easy to train people to be a lorry driver and a fruit picker. But they don't have the understanding that someone would much rather train and have a better life doing some kind of skilled work than unskilled work. You're just gonna have a better life. You're just gonna earn more money, and in a much nicer way. And so, I think class is an issue. It always has been an issue in this country, but I think this totally sums up uh, the lack of understanding from the Conservatives towards how our society functions. If you offer someone the choice between training to be a lorry driver and training to be, I don't know, someone that works on roofing, for example, a tiler, plasterer, all of these sort of. I'm thinking of these sort of manual jobs. I mean, you've got even supermarket workers, um, parcel delivery jobs. Oh, parcel delivery jobs. To be honest, I think they're sort of in the same role as lorry drivers. A lot of parcel deliverers are migrants, so it's sort of your skill. What they see one, how I would refer to them as skilled workers. People are always going to pick skilled workers. I mean, even if they get paid slightly less money. And this is even if you don't get paid slightly less money. But I reckon that even if you get paid slightly less money, the majority of people would pick skilled work because the life is better. It's not money is often considered the issue, but also it's what goes alongside it. Job security is another one. If it's seasonal work, who knows if you're going to have that job next year? That's why I think shipbuilding was an issue in this country, because I think it's very seasonal. I remember reading that somewhere, but that may be historic. Rather to go on off on a tangent on that. Um, but yeah, like this is just it's beyond. Obviously, it's a bit geographic. It's a bit sociological. But it all comes down to the fact that you've got to embrace what people are willing to do. We've had shortages of these roles um, for a while now, since we started the rhetoric of trying to reduce migration. So go figure what the issue is. Oh, it started when we left the EU and it got worse by the pandemic. So go figure what the issue is. We were, I'm fortunate enough to have a group of people come over and think I want to make a better life for myself, so I'm going to pick fruit on a farm. Whereas I'm sure they could be doing something um, more skilled back home, but they choose not to. And you've got to be grateful for someone to have that mentality to come and do that job, because no one in your country wants to do it. No one in the UK wants to. I mean, not no one, but not many people want to do these things, and we've got to accept that that is a lifestyle choice. It's a societal choice where we are. I think, as always, British people do aspire to be more. You have aspiring middle class people. I guess it's always been the phrase where working class people always aim to be middle class. And however poorly you think the system functions, that has been the case. I mean, for all of my lifetime. I don't want to speak about the past, because the past, even 100 years ago, we had massive class problems with the class divide and how bad it was. And obviously in post World War II, it's come up and down with a class divide, and the gap between the richest person in the country and the poorest person in the country is sort of shrunk and then enlarged again. These are all different issues, but in terms of the class system, how it functions now is that we very much have. We also have social classes, class by job. There are different ways of however you want to measure class, and the people, even if you are working class, which is often sometimes used as even a pejorative, some people like working class, some people don't like working class as the term, and I think even if you are working class, again, you're more. The majority of working class people are going to be skilled workers that have an extensive amount of knowledge in something over someone else, and that is, I think, something that people forget, is that you can't just magically say tomorrow. I mean, let's say Suella Braverman, for example, you send her out and into a field picking fruit. Okay, well, I'm sure she can do that. She might not like doing it, but let's just say she takes up the task, and then you send her off and you say, right, okay, now you're going to be a plumber. Now you're going to be a tiler. Go and do that. Oh well, instantly we've got a skill gap. Obviously there will be more effective ways of picking fruit, but there is literally a skill gap where you will not know how to do certain things. Some things will be common sense, and some things will be not common sense. Some things will be learnt by years of experience, and it's the value you have in society. You have to value everyone for doing something that they like to do, and ambition is not a problem. Ambition should be accepted within reason. Obviously, you shouldn't not allow. That's the wrong term. It's not healthy then if everyone believes that they can do something within reason of putting in the hard work to get there. Because if you encourage motivation and hard work, then people are A, more likely going to achieve said goal, and B, creates a more healthy society. Whereas if you say you could do anything and then without doing any of the hard work to get there, that's problematic. So, these are the things that we have. We have a lot of people that put in some amount of work to get the job they want and to live the life they want. And it's just this lack of understanding from a Conservative government that I think is slightly losing the plot. And I mean, Suella Braverman, she's clearly so clueless and ridiculously clueless. She's a one-trick pony. She's like a single-issue politician, and doesn't even understand her own issue. So ridiculous. And that concludes my rant on the government. Now my rant about well, I say religion, specifically the Catholic Church. Now, slight bugbear. Whenever people say religion, people like to use the actual religion when they don't mean religion. A lot of discourse on religion is talking about things specifically. So this is going to be a specific rant about, well, I don't want to say the church because the Pope has received a group of backlash, but the I don't know, the inability to separate church and state has always been a problem, and I think will always be a problem. You can never separate religion with state, and obviously religion for any individual, including the Pope, who is supposed to be, I don't want to say above the state, but the Vatican City is not Italy. And however, if you didn't know any better, you'd think it is, because Pope Francis recounted in I believe he was in a conference with Giorgia Meloni, who's the far right Prime Minister of Italy. She's someone that doesn't practice what she preaches. They give a load of money to people to get married. The money was specifically for Catholics to get married. She herself isn't married and yet likes to tell people that women should be in domestic roles, despite being in a position of political power, which certainly isn't a domestic role. Not that there is a problem with women being in domestic roles, but why are you the exception to the rule then? Oh wait, no, I'm in power. What, you're going to relinquish your power to go into domestic roles? No, you're not. Why? I don't understand people. Oh, it's okay for me to not be in a domestic role and to have pursued a political career, but all the other women have to. It's like, okay, you're just stupid. Anyway, won't get into a rant about that. But yeah, the government is anxious about the country's birth rate and population. Again, this also, it's sort of also underpinned by migration, is that the rhetoric of migration from the government, and I've again, this is anecdotally, but I've spoken to people who have said that. So a lot of Italian migration, non-European migration, has a lot of EU migration. I think it's the largest population of the Romanian diaspora abroad is in Italy. The largest population of Albanians, I think, is in Italy as well. That was a statistic that I knew, but I don't know anymore. That may not be true as of, I can't remember the recent statistic. But yeah, they've got a lot of European migration. But then in the south of Italy, they've got a lot of African migration. And you'll have a lot of people, anecdotally, will say that they welcome the migration, but then a lot of the political rhetoric is against the migration, because the South tends to be more conservative right voting, although they're living different lives to the North. So then you have this weird political rhetoric which is anti-migration, and one of the reasons why birth rate is declining is demographics of when you get into the demographics of living, obviously birth rate declines first, whilst people start living longer, then death rate declines. And the reason why is because more people are pursuing careers, more women are pursuing careers. Although that's an issue in itself in Italy that I won't get into this moment. But yeah, birth rates are falling, and this has come to the logic that pets are replacing children, which in itself is a false equivalency. Are there any stats to back this up? Are there any stats? Full stop. There are no statistics that I can find to back up an assertion that pets are replacing children in Italy. This is again, it's completely anecdotal, which um, you don't uh, you don't base your counter argument on anecdotal evidence. Again, the Pope also seemed in that the Pope used something that was completely anecdotal with no statistics that I can find on the internet. You know, if the Pope has a secret vault of stats that he knows from Italy, then please make these. Is this what's in the Vatican archive? It's just secret statistics that they've got about about, about the country's rate of pets to children. So very anecdotal evidence. Anyway, so he made this complaint, and he said that, but he actually blamed the cost of living, inadequate childcare, and rising rent, uh, which meant that, which sort of again is against which is sort of against the government, because the government are in control of doing this, so the government should be tackling all these issues. Sort of stems from the issues of the UK government as well. Is that, well, you've got all these problems why people are doing less skilled jobs because they can't afford to live if they're working as a fruit picker. Oh yeah, but we don't want migrants, so we just don't want anyone doing the jobs, or we're gonna push the cost of living up, um, and then not reap what we sow. Well, to be honest, the cost of living in Italy is quite cheap. It's drastically cheaper than the UK. I think there are probably some more nuanced issues again that we don't have space and time to get into. But yeah, so 2 weeks ago, a woman he met at the Vatican asked for a blessing for her baby, which she said in quotes. It turned out to be a small dog. The Pope greeted the lady. She opened her bag. This is a translation from Italian. She opened her bag and said, "Bless my baby." It was a little dog. The Pope he said, "I lost my patience and upbraided her, saying, 'Madam, so many children are hungry, and you bring me a little dog,'" he told the conference. He says that young Italians were disabled from having children by socio-economic conditions, difficulty finding a stable job, keeping one, expensive houses, sky-high rents, insufficient wages are the real problem. Free market without necessary corrective measures becomes savage and produces increasingly serious situations and inequalities. So he's attacked the economic issues in Italy, and unnecessarily berated a woman. Because here's the nuances of this situation. So we'll take it from the purpose of being a Catholic. Well, why you're passing judgment on someone. My first issue is just on the personal level, and then I'll take it to the wider level. Is that so? The Pope is okay with passing a judgment on someone, this person that he knows nothing about. This is a random anecdotal encounter. If it even happened, it probably did, because lying is a sin. So the Pope shouldn't be lying. If he is lying, oh, serious problem. But let's just take the Pope's word for it. That the story happened exactly how this came about. So he's scorned a woman for calling her dog "my baby" without knowing anything about her. Now, let's say this woman. Well, first off, you can go obviously to the extreme. The woman, let's say this woman was infertile and she can't have a baby. Yeah, serious problem. Again, the Pope doesn't know anything about this person, so the Pope has made an assumption. Let's say this woman suffered some kind of tragedy, lost an infant, miscarriage, had cancer. Or that would, I guess, go under infertility. But a whole range of issues that presupposes the non-existence of a child, which a Pope doesn't know about. And then obviously, there's personal choice. So there are a whole group of reasons why something can happen beyond personal choice. I could very easily get into the fact that the Pope has gone completely binary because everyone in the world seems unable to see past the binary. You are X, so you are not Y. Your baby is a dog, therefore I mean, also she could have kids. Who knows? The dog could have been sick. Who knows? Well, we don't, because the Pope has essentially passed a judgment which is irresponsible. It's against the nature of the religion that he's supposed to be standing for. Um, it is stupid. Um, I don't think the Pope, you know, has he's tying in a political message to something that isn't political, because this is a personal story. But then, you know, you go on to the personal issue, the political issue. Sorry, the wider problems. So, firstly, the Pope is bringing in um, Italy's demographic problem, and he replied saying, "So many children are hungry, and you bring me a little dog." Well, you know, if that's the world that you're going to bring a child in, you've probably just dissuaded that person from having a child anyway, because, oh yeah, look at all those starving children, and you've bought me a dog. It's like, okay, that's again still not, you know, a very understanding counter. I don't really know why, if that's a response, is that, oh well, why did you not bring me a starving child? It's like, a sick animal is a sick animal. Then there's the point that a lot of the backlash that the Pope received in Italy is that, so the Pope is Pope Francis, and his papal name is from Francis of Assisi, who was sort of a lover of animals, and so his papal name is from a pope that uh, loved and cared for animals, and he's taken this again. He doesn't know anything about this person. The dog could just be sick, and he's taken. He's been triggered by somebody saying "bless my baby" and it's a dog, and he's been triggered. He's this, and this is so. The first thing is that I would say this is completely un-Catholic, and it's a political thing rather than a religious thing, because it's not your judge to pass judgment. It's not your job to pass judgment on an individual. You can obviously use it as an example of, anecdotally, of how you're seeing people have less children, but that still gives you no right to judge the lady for doing so. And the reason why is that there are so many underlying things that that could be happening that you don't know about, which is why it's not your place to judge. Um, Unsurprising that people are unable to, you know, perceive things beyond, you know, a binary lens. The middle ground is normally so much more true than anything else um, that people know of, and yeah, it is. Obviously, there are so many reasons why people all turn away from religion in the modern period, particularly with Catholicism. It's obviously their um, homophobia and their treatment of their sex scandals that they have. I guess that's the best way to put it. But um, you know, these churches have bad raps for XYZ, and now you've got a group of people um, basically saying, "How dare you?" And so there was a signed letter from animal rights activists, animal welfare or organisations of veterinarians, and a veterinary doctor wrote a letter addressed to the Pope, which went viral, um, because the veterinary doctor was like, "Mate, you're an idiot." To summarize the letter, it was written by um, Vincenzo Minuto, who's a veterinarian. Um, yes, and of course, the Pope, I think, uh, famously blessed a Lamborghini, uh, um, which is blessing a material that is a sign of luxury, yet blessing um, a dog that is a living animal that technically humans are steward over again if you're in the Pope's interpretation of the Bible. And this is why this thing was completely un-Catholic of him, and it's against his own interpretation of the religion that he follows. And no one is truly fully religious, and what I mean by that is that the Pope cannot separate himself from religion. Is a human interaction. No one can separate themselves from no one can separate their religion, the understanding of religion as well, from the time that they live in. But the whole point of the Pope is he's supposed to be the best person to do that in terms of understanding what's good for the church in the world, not just in Italy, but also then that comes at the lowest level of what's good for the people that follow the religion. Someone has gone all that way and been treated in that way. Why? Because the Pope has his own agenda that, guess what, is, like I said, against the church. It's against the religion that he practices, because he's annoyed with people. He's annoyed with people that are not having children. The letter, which I'll put in the bio of this video because it's long, but the letter I think sums up, many things. Is that criticizes the Pope for not owning an animal. The veterinarian himself has 2 children and animals, which is another thing, is that the person can have children and animals. Who knows? And the religious argument, I think, is unnecessary. And I was a supporter of Pope Francis, not Pope Francis, Pope Francis in his modernizing of the church, and some of the jobs that he took on. But and as with the biggest reason why I disagree and I don't believe in organized religion and I don't belong to an organized religion, this is the reason why I don't belong to an organized religion, because the modern use of organized religion is, in my view anyway, incredibly problematic. Because so with Catholicism, for example, the church is supposed to be at the top. So the simple distinction between Catholics and Protestants is that Protestants believe the Bible is more important than the church, and the Catholics believe the church is more important than the Bible. That's a simple. There are loads of theological nuances that, again, this is what I said. It's a simple thing to say, but that is one of the biggest things that they agree with. And so this is what the church says in regard to animals, something completely political, which I don't know. Common sense, I think, and critical thinking, people are seriously lacking in this world at the moment, and that's not to even get started on perceptions of binaries. And I say perceptions of binaries, and what I mean is that the Pope here is gone, you've called your dog a baby, therefore you must be, you exemplify all of these issues that come with people not having children. Does he know the person doesn't have children? We don't know. He never said. Does the woman not have children for any reasons? We don't know. He seemingly never asked. He chose to scorn the person, which I don't think any religious person should ever do, especially the Pope, without any further understanding or empathy with her situation. The Pope gets a 0 out of 10, a well-deserved 0 out of 10, and this is the state of society. Well done to, and this is, it's been picked up by not many. The Telegraph picked up on this because I think the Telegraph obviously has a right-wing readership, and spends the majority of its article focusing on the problems with Italy, uh, with the shrinking population, and that uh, he said that I mean, and also this is actually a good point brought up the Telegraph is that in January 2022 the Pope said that people who choose to have pets instead of children were selfish, um, because again he has so he's listed the reasons why people are making these choices. They're basically forced into making these choices by their economic conditions, but yet still calls the people selfish. He's old. So the only thing I can say to that is that his critical thinking has seriously deteriorated, because I don't understand if you can outline a list of reasons why something doesn't happen and then you can say, well, it's your fault because you're selfish. You clearly don't have a good enough skill of critical thinking, um, and someone needs maybe one of his cardinal aides needs to turn around and say, yeah, want to have a think about that one, pal. I think you need to go and have a quiet sit down, and hopefully the priest that gives him confession gives him a bollocking for it, because or if he doesn't confess it, he's sinning away. Yeah, um, again highlighting the issues that a lot of people have with religion, um, and you'll only push people away when you make such hypocritically morally judgment statements. You never make moral judgments on people. People are driven by many different factors. They're driven by psychology, sociology, um, the individual, which I guess is psychology, but psychology of people. They're also driven by context, contemporary events, history. The people in economics, people are driven by. There are a million things that make up our human society and that made up our human society, and to ascribe a list of faults which the Pope has for why people don't have kids, and then say, well, you're selfish for not doing so, despite all of these reasons. Dear oh dear. Yeah, so Catholics, this is your Pope. This is, you know, this is what you have to deal with, not what I have to deal with. To say that the Pope is representing God and how he speaks, absolutely not. And I'm not just saying that. Oh, that's my subjective opinion. Is that, well, people can have many opinions on animals and on child rearing, and obviously says that people should have. It says in the Bible that people should have kids, but if you're giving me a list of reasons why people don't have kids, and then you're saying they're selfish for doing so, you're passing a judgment when you shouldn't be judging. You can say people should have more kids, but then to pass judgment, it's not the what you're saying, it's the passing judgment, which is completely against the whole point of the faith. Really, everyone should then scrutinize everything you do. Ironically, I'm doing now. I guess I am a hypocrite. Or no, because people are happy to scrutinize me actually, and I have no problem with being scrutinized, because I think that scrutiny is an important form of growth, and also being challenged is an important form of growth. People don't like to be challenged, especially in modern discourse. A challenge instantly means you disagree, and again, people are so, X and Y is that, well, if you disagree with me in one area, you don't like me. But this is it's a failing of critical thinking. I think that it's a failure of the separation of the Vatican City is a separate entity, it's a separate state, for the very reason that it is not Italy. You might think it's Italy, but it's not Italy, because it's not supposed to represent Italy. It's supposed to represent the world, which obviously the world has a growing population. Italy has a declining population, but you're not representing Italy. So even go on to just the most basic point of, you're in the Vatican City, and the Vatican City is not Italy. So Italy's obviously relevant, but he's not even he's Argentine. Or I don't know the birth demographics of Argentina, but I reckon that actually they would not be in decline. So again, story to meet a message. Was that person? You can even ask, was that person Italian? If that person wasn't even Italian, then you've got problems. Oh, I just thought of another issue. Oh God, the list goes on and on. Yeah, I have nothing against religion. Um, Nothing against religious people. I have. I'm extremely adverse to people that lack critical thinking, and the Pope apparently is one of them. So I hope you've enjoyed this multi-layered rant episode. As always, I hope to see you in the next one. Um, and I really hope that everyone is enjoying the podcast. If you have any suggestions, anything you want me to talk about, let me know. That's all for now.